note of the Jamaican for Justice's condemnation of what they describe as intolerable number of fatal shootings by the security forces. I strongly support the view that the number of fatal shootings is too high. However, the call is wrongly directed and should be aiming at those who make the decision to challenge a far more superior force. And so let me encourage the Jamaican for Justice to be more responsible in their public pronouncements, especially when the nation is aware of its members' proven ability.
No, the police commissioner says it perfectly clear here that while the number of fatal shootings are high, and that he understands fully well that we would want the figure to be low, there are elements out there in Jamaica that are and have decided and continue to decide to engage the police officers in shooting. And I concur and support the Commissioner of Police 100% in saying, listen, why do you want to engage in a superior force than you? And then expect us, when you show a gun to us, that we should actually what? Shoot the gun out of your hand or shoot you in the knee or something. It is absurd, and it's a matter that the Jamaican for Justice should not have ventured into or not have thought of, because the issue is real. There are gunmen, they are persons who are engaged in intentional homicides, who have weapons, particularly guns, and they are willing to engage the police. I have witnessed scenes where gunmen have actually engaged the police into shootout. Not that the police have engaged them, they have engaged the police, have started it. And I'm saying to myself, what do the police do in situations like these? Do they run and hide, or do they engage these men? Because if they run and hide, what does it mean? Is that these men will actually become lost to themselves and decide to take over and apprehend and arrest and corral those persons who are law-abiding citizens, and therefore not only will we be able to not be walking freely in a civil society, but will be held hostage to these unscrupulous fellows. So the Commissioner of Police, Dr. Kevin Blake, is perfectly right in saying what the Jamaican for Justice is doing is wrongly directed. What the JFJ should be seeking to do is to assist the police in looking at instances where these police shootings that are good are applauded and those that are questionable are questioned. But it should not be such that we are having a situation coming on where this is what is actually unfolding in our society. We have got to try to find a way to address this matter. And it cannot be that the police should be running away from criminals. It cannot be that the police should be hiding from criminals. It cannot be the police should be looking and seeking to protect criminals in instances where guns and bullets are flying around the place. No, it is absurd to even to think that, listen, because there are 10 police shootings, there should be 0. Because to assume that 10 police shootings should be reduced to 0 is to say that those persons who have engaged the police are going to be withholding their option to engage the police, or a matter of fact, not be willing to engage the police. And you and I are fully aware that they are not going to be doing that. Many of them are going to be engaging the police. The police commissioner also further some arguments that I also support. And I want you to sort of look at these arguments and tell me if the police commissioner did anything wrong or said anything wrong.
To comprehend the most basic and fundamental principles of security. To suggest that fatal shooting numbers can be reduced by anything other than the unwillingness of persons being apprehended to engage in deadly confrontation with members of the security forces is irresponsible, or at best, advocating for us to relent in our pursuit. We again reiterate the point that those who seek to kill and maim will not be left free and unobstructed to hold communities at ransom and in constant fear. It means we we make no apology to stand between these murdering thugs and the people of this country. We also wish to reiterate the idiocy of these criminal elements in seeking to engage the security forces with deadly force and expect not to be responded to with similar force. Ladies and gentlemen, our prisons and police lockups are fully populated with persons who have made the smarter choice of surrendering peacefully to the police. We have had well over 1,000 firearm-related arrests each year. Persons have had their day in court and have, in some instances, been freed of the charges against them. They have all lived to see another day, simply because they choose not to direct deadly force against our members. We have had police officers and soldiers killed and seriously injured in some of these confrontations. It is mandated by policy that every incident of fatal shooting must be followed by a removal from frontline duty and an administrative review. This takes police that would normally be out to protect you, the citizens, off the street. And so, yes, we agree. We need to have less fatal shootings. And so I call upon JFJ to demonstrate to the public that your care is more for the well-being of our citizens.
No, there can be no denial in what the police commissioner is saying, that this matter must be addressed. But at the same time, while we need to address the matter, we need to understand carefully and clearly that the police shootings cannot be reduced to zero unless those persons that they are engaged with have decided not to engage or not to pick up guns and display the moral shoot at the police. One needs to sort of think carefully what sometimes we are saying and the implications and the interpretation and the deductions that can be made for our arguments. JFJ is clearly wrong in this case and went overboard. And this matter, they should really look at and make amends.
And less for the relevance of your organization. And it is hard for me to think otherwise when I know JFJ is fully abreast of the facts. Finally, as I wrap up, this constant call for there to be more accountability over the JCF is in itself a slap in the face of Indicom. Be reminded that that is their single most important mandate.
And I support the police commissioner here. Indicom's responsibility is to examine fatal shootings. And if there are questions, take these questions to the court, and the court will decide whether or not a police is guilty of criminal negligence or not in the execution of his or her duty. So if there is a fatal shooting and Indicom investigate the matter, and that matter would have been put to rest to say, okay, then the police acted within his or their rightful duty in protecting themselves, that they could not have done anything otherwise, then there's no issue to be discussing why Indicom would say, listen, fatal shootings are too high. Yes, I agree that they are too high, but they are only too high because the men are shooting at the police. Or if there are questionable situations, we are saying that these situations would have been dealt with, and possibly these individuals will leave off their duties if it is found that they are guilty, possibly taken to court or even imprisoned. So I'm saying the matter to say that police shootings can be reduced tomorrow morning is not an idiotic thing, as the police commissioner alluded to, but it is really absurd to even think of it, that this can actually happen solely because the police decide not to shoot back at these individuals. Because we look carefully at what is happening. If somebody engage you in deadly force in terms of shooting, and shots are being fired in your direction, what should a police do in that scenario? Let's take this JFJ situation out of the way. What would you do as a normal individual? You'd have to actually hide as a normal individual. The police are trying to protect themselves, so they are going to be hiding as well as responding. And if they hide and respond and the individual is killed, then what are they to do? What are you saying that they should do? Should they run away and hide? Because if it is that the police are to run away and hide, that will also send a signal to the criminals that they have the power to do whatever they want to do and get away with it. Because the police force, men and women, are afraid of them, and therefore they are able to do anything and get away with it. We also sort of understand, JFJ, the implications of what it is that you are really saying. And when I'm saying the implication, because you are really saying, if the police want to reduce fatal shootings, then they should not return fire. But you're fired on. So what are you to do? And I'm saying, what we can really argue is that if the police fatal shootings are questionable and those are taken by Indicom and brought to the courts and police are found guilty, then those have been dealt with. And what we can argue here is that those are some of the things that the police are trying to reduce. And that's why Indicom would be there to reduce and to prevent those things from occurring. Therefore, I'm saying, JFJ, what are you really arguing? Do you understand the implication of what you're saying? Are you saying we should have an anarchic society in where thieves and thugs are law unto themselves and are able to do anything that they want to do, and all of us, including the police and the army, should have to run away from these thugs and criminals? What are you saying, JFJ?
To be absolutely clear, lest I am misunderstood or misquoted, I am a full supporter of what Indicom stands for. An effective Indicom assures me that those among us who believe that they are free to break the law will be held to account and be removed from within our ranks. The JCF's effectiveness depends on this. However, I'm concerned that the JFJ supports the idea that Indicom's investigation is being hampered because we do not have body-worn camera footage to present to them, even while they have more than 60% of what is required to complete an investigation. And this includes statements from our members who are involved, ballistic information, report on the circumstances surrounding the case, and primacy over the scene. We in the JCF do not have the luxury of taking that position. So let me take this opportunity to reiterate the point that we have been making for some time. We will continue to use our superior intelligence gathering capabilities. We will continue to utilize our superior investigative capacity. We will use our superior operational capabilities, and we will go out and confront those who seek to destabilize our communities by wielding the threat of violence and terror. It continues to be our intention to bring those marauding criminals to justice so that they can have their day in court. Our track record of bringing violent criminals before a judge is beyond question. However, let me say again, when the police come for you, do not raise your weapons against us. Lay down your weapons and have your day in court. But should you choose the foolish option of challenging us with lethal force, know this: I do not train my police to lose. We have the superior training and firepower to ensure that we win every time. Let me encourage every Jamaican who truly believe in justice to work alongside the Jamaica Constabulary Force to continue our mission.
I support this 100%. If an individual so chooses to engage the police, then all it is that the police is going to actually engage you. It's as simple as that. What I argue, which the commissioner said as well, is that those persons who are found guilty of actually going beyond the law and outside the scope of the law, then they will be brought to justice and actually got rid of out of the force. So if that is the case, then how many of the fatal shootings could be avoided? Think about that, ladies and gentlemen. How many of the fatal shootings could be avoided if it is that the police are doing their job and an individual raise a gun and shoot at the police, or even raise a gun? Now, let's think about it for a second. If an individual raises a gun at you and you have a gun, what are you going to do? It's impromptu to respond. And in that impromptu response, you may die with the gun in your hand, or he or she may die with the gun in his or her hand. It's as simple as that. So I support the commissioner. Put down your gun. Put down your gun. Do not engage the police. And if you do not engage the police, automatically the number of fatal shootings will be substantially reduced. That is where the issue is. That is where the issue is. Except the JFJ as evidence that many of the police shootings are unlawful. And if that's the case, it ought to be brought to INDECOM and the police hierarchy to let them be aware of these evidences. But to merely argue that police shootings can be reduced by simply police putting down their weapons is to say, listen, let the criminals flourish and law-abiding citizens fare and hide. Like, share, and subscribe to my channel as I continue to provide you with trusted information for you to use decision, make decision.